So, you want to start a handbell choir or a hand chime choir? You've come to the right place. My name is Donna Kinsey. I'm the pastoral musician for St. Francis de Sales Catholic Parish in Morgantown, West Virginia. Welcome to our music room where we have bells, singers, all kinds of instruments except bagpipes. I draw the line at bagpipes in the small space, but in our church we have a big space and our bells and our hand chimes sound wonderful there, as well as our singers. Come visit us anytime when you're on I-79 and I-68 where they intersect. There we are. Well, what would you need to start a handbell choir? First of all, you'll need instruments. You'll either need chimes, the hand chimes, or you'll need handbells. But where do you get them? Well, one of the best places to find them is in a closet, in a church or in a school in your community, if not in your own church or in your own school, because many times they just get put aside when nobody's there and interested in them for a while, and then when somebody wants to find them again, oh, those big black cases. Okay, so find some bells, find some chimes. If you can't find any that you can borrow, there are companies in western or eastern Pennsylvania. Malmark and Schulmerich are both handbell distributors and producers, and they have borrowing and renting agreements that you can work with them. I'll have the information for you at the end of my video. But the first thing is you got to find your instruments. Then the second thing is you have to find ringers. Well, where do you find ringers? I take anybody God sends through the music room door and I figure out what I can do with them. But you have to figure out what you're going to do. You might want to target your age group. Do you want to have it an elementary group? Do you want it to be high school? Do you want it to be adults only? Do you want it to be intergenerational? When I started ringing back in the 1960s, I was in a group at St. John's Lutheran Church in Katanning, Pennsylvania. I'd been hired as the organist. And 2 months later, I was also the handbell director. So you know how much I knew when I started. But I learned to ring in a group from a 5th grader up to people in their 80s. And there were 2 octaves of bells, which is what a lot of people start with, 2 or 3 octaves. You can go as far as 6 and 7. And they had a group that just got together once a week, and we played all over the place and had a great time, and I was hooked. And so when I moved to Morgantown, trying to find bells, there weren't many in town, but a church shared them with me on Christmas Eve, no less. My husband picked them up from their church door and brought them to our church door and then returned them because they had another service. So you never know where you can find bells, or then how do you get your ringers? You go anywhere you can find people. Could be in your religious ed classes, could be in your classroom classes if you were in a school, could be in a community area that you want to go and visit people. But everywhere you go, talk it up, bring everybody in so they know what you want to do. Oh, and of course, you should have talked to your principal and your pastor first. Well then, what else do you need? You need a ringing space. If you don't have room to put up a table, because you're going to need foam pads, the bells need protection. The lip of the bell is very fragile. And you think, oh, I'll just get the big ones. They will last the longest. They are the most fragile, and they're the most expensive. Our largest bell is about this big, thousands of dollars. You don't want to have that ruined. So you want to be sure you've got a foam pad. For the hand chimes, you only need about an inch. I've used carpet squares. I've used sleeping bags for the hand chimes, but you need something padded to protect them. They're made of aluminum, but they are still fragile. If they're banged around too much, they lose their tune. Well, when you've got your table and your space, oh, but you may have to share that space. I did that for 1,000 years. You may have to set up your tables, put up your foam pads, take everything down, and then you have to have a place to store it. So there's lots of space issues that you're going to have to think about. Well, what other equipment do you need besides handbells or hand chimes? We've talked about the foam pads. Music. You are so fortunate. When I started in the 60s, there was not a lot of music that was available for handbells. And so today, it's all organized. Handbell Musicians of America is a fabulous organization. They have a system of organizing music by difficulty, so it's level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, level 6, and so on. I would suggest to you that level 1 might be a good place to start. Even with experienced musicians, because even though you know how to read music, that doesn't mean you know how to ring a bell, or that you know how to read the symbols that are on the bell page as to various techniques. I had a med school student from West Virginia University that was in my choir several years ago. He goes, I've been making music all my life and I can't figure out what they want me to do with this dot and this arrow. And we had to laugh, but you had to be able to teach at that moment. So you always will have teachable moments. You'll need, if you don't use music stands, you'll need to have handbell folders or 3-ring binders, and they have a fold so that you're able to put them out. They're called easels, and you're able to use them and keep your music organized. Or I've had handball choirs that had more narrow tables, and they used music stands, and they just had a notebook folder that they put their music in. But somehow you want to stay organized. I've got gloves on. It protects my hands because, boy, when you have a long rehearsal, you'll have blisters. And it also protects the instruments so that they do not get tarnished. The bronze is a precious instrument. You don't necessarily have to wear gloves with chimes, but if you're already playing bells and then you switch to chimes, you'll just keep your gloves on. You won't take them off. It helps to have a riser. They can be plexiglass or they can be cast iron. I taught in a middle school for several years. You need cast iron for middle school kids. But the plexiglass ones are flexible in that they will fold. The cast iron doesn't fold. You will also, if you want to do some of the special techniques as you go along, you would need mallets. And there are various size mallets for various size bells. And so you would need to know which mallets you needed. And Jeffers Handbell Supply, who has presented and had exhibits at NPM, they have often brought their mallets with them. Both Schulmerich and Malmark have been at NPM, and they bring mallets, so there's help for you there with that, okay? And the other thing you're going to need is pencils with good erasers. Although a lot of people are now starting to use their iPad and scan music in, you have to make sure you follow all the copyright laws for that, but you still would write on those and not need a pencil. But I like pencils and erasers. You do what you would like with that. Now, what skills would you as a director need? Number one, you have to have some leadership skills. You have to know how to work with people. You have to know how to get people excited about a project, and I call it being a salesperson. You have to be able to organize, and eventually you can pass some of that organizational stuff off to other people, keeping the gloves washed, getting the music in the folders, getting things ready to transport if you're going to take your groups on the road. There's so many things that need help, and organizational skills are a big part of that. But people can volunteer to help you with that. Teaching skills, even though you say, I'm not a teacher, if you're going to be a handball director, not everybody stays every year. And new people move in, and you're going to have to teach them how to ring those, how to do those various skills. So there's ways to help you. Handbell Musicians of America, National Pastoral Musicians, many of the other church organizations and school organizations have handbell workshops as part of their conferences. Right now, there's a lot of things going on virtually, as well as there are videos on YouTube like you would not believe. So it's not like you have to start from scratch. There are all kinds of instructional books, both with a handbell slant or chime slant for schools, as well as for churches. So if you're thinking, I'd like to use these in my school classes, I did. I used them in my classes very much in the middle school I taught in. And there are instructional books of all sorts that you can check out. You also need the ability to hear pitches. When everybody's ringing, can you tell who rang the wrong one? You might not be able to do that right away, but boy, it'll save a lot of rehearsal time if you can figure it out eventually. The biggest thing you're going to need is patience, because you have to be able to plan your rehearsal and keep everybody engaged, but then there's that one ringer that doesn't understand, and everything has to kind of stop till you get them caught up. Your choir will never be any better than the worst ringer that you've got. And so you've got to get their skills up to match the others. And so you have to be creative with the way you work your rehearsal so everybody else doesn't get bored. And you just have to have patience with somebody that might take 3 weeks to learn what everybody else learned in one. Now, where do you find your music? Well, as I said, there's a lot of varieties and there's a lot of companies that have music out there. Sometimes it's what we call original handbell music, that it was written for handbells or for hand chimes only. Then there's music that's been arranged from orchestral pieces or famous organ pieces or flute pieces. Then there's pieces that are arranged on hymn tunes. There's a wide variety and they're all at different levels. But you can also write your own, and this is what I like to do if I'm starting a handbell choir and I've got a rehearsal and I've got some people excited and they're so excited to learn to ring. I don't care if it's 3 of them or if it's 12 of them or 20. I can have them ringing at church on Sunday. So let me just demonstrate what I can do, and again, I'll have this as part of my handout at the end. Let's say that you're singing, if you're not the musician in charge of everything, you need to make sure you're in the same key as the people that are playing the accompaniment on guitars or on keyboard or on organ. But let's say you're doing the song, If You Believe and I Believe. And this is one that I use with my elementary ringers. They're able to learn this and be able to play it on Sunday. And it just starts out simply. And they're going to have to be able to keep a beat. And everybody has an assigned pitch, and so it's easy for them to do. If you believe and I believe and we together pray. Now that looked like, but that was just me playing instead of one person each having for their instrument. And you can make the chart so that it has the word under the bell that they're to bring on or the chime that they're to bring on. Easy to do. Well, there's another thing you can do with bells. The hymn that's in public domain, Praise to the Lord, easy to do, and it's in 3. And I could do Praise to the Lord the Almighty. But handbells fade. They are a percussion instrument, so they start to fade as soon as they ring. So we do what we call shake, and so that allows the sound to last longer. Praise to the Lord the Almighty, the King of creation. And that allows the sound to grow. And if you have more than one octave, I put all my octaves together and it gives a big sound. And so it gives an interesting sound too, and gives you a different technique that you can learn to do. I learned to do a shake from a group of nuns many years ago in Cleveland, and they were the ones that said only on special days in their chapel were they allowed to shake because it's such a joyful sound. Well, what do you do when you don't know what to do? You find people that can help you. This video should be of some help to you. You can invite other bell choirs to come in and present at your church, at your school assemblies. Other denominations are very welcome to come to play. They're excited to come and play at a Catholic church because you may not have another Catholic church nearby that has handbells. And they'll come and play maybe solo pieces or maybe play on your hymns. And you can talk to those directors. You can talk to other ringers. That's how you learn a lot of stuff about how to organize a bell choir because they all have their opinions on how things should be done. And you can always contact me. You can email me or text me. I've got my information there, or call me. There are handbell workshops all over the country that right now many of them are being canceled, but the Handbell Musicians of America has divided the United States up into various sections, and each of those areas has festivals, workshops, clinics. They have, each state has their own chair, and they will be glad to help you if you contact them, if you just go online and find that. And I'll have the links down here at the bottom. I would encourage you to try it. And we were to have a bell festival at the Louisville NPM convention, and people come in and watch our rehearsals. That's a good way to learn. It's come in and watch a rehearsal, but the best way is ring yourself. Come in and learn how to ring. Glad to have you in the music room at St. Francis anytime. Thanks so much for being with me today, and if I can help you at all, let me know. Thanks.
Greetings and welcome to Malmark. We're here in our ringing room at our factory here in Plumsteadville, Pennsylvania, and I'm Kathy Ebling Shaw. I'll be joined later by Hyosung Park, and we're just going to take a few minutes today to share a little bit about our instrument called Handbells and give a little demonstration of how they are used. The Handbells are actually mounted handbell castings made of bronze. We offer 3 octaves of Handbells. We have our lower octave from C5 to C6, our middle range C6 to C7, and then C7 to C8. So each set is a complete chromatic set of castings mounted on a rack on a stand. They are accompanied by mallets as well as are fit neatly in a wonderful folding case. They are a wonderful instrument to be used by individuals, by community groups, churches, schools, and for many other uses. The Handbells are most commonly used for liturgical purposes and to embellish worship, pardon the pun there. And their primary use in the church is to add just some brilliance to congregational singing. There's a number of ways that we can use them. We're unable to give you a full demonstration during these COVID times. However, we'll demonstrate just a few of the patterns that can be used during the congregational singing, during hymn singing. And so the most common use of handbells during hymn singing would be random ringing. And in that, you choose a particular pattern of pitches and just ring them randomly during 1 or 2 stanzas of the hymn. If you are using plain chant, I would suggest keeping it very open in fifths and just have the bells strike whenever they want to in patterns. You can even do a little roll, but just keep it very open when you have a very stepwise melody. If you have a European hymn tune from the 19th century, you can just choose whatever key that hymn tune is in and random ring in that way. For instance, if we were in the key of F major, so you can just strike whenever you want to. Just to give a little bit of a glisten. You'll notice that as I'm using the bells and as I finish, oftentimes during hymn singing we don't want to worry too much about damping, but if you do have to damp the bells, it's important to wear gloved hands and one just touches the castings. And because there are 2 tones coming from the handbell casting, it's important to touch the entire wall of the casting. With my mallets, I am striking near the lip of the bell. That is probably the thickest part of the casting. And the reason why I'm striking near the lip is twofold. For instance, number 1, that's where the fundamental pitch is coming from. The secondary pitch, or the 12th in the overtone series, comes from the higher waist area of the casting, and the fundamental comes from the lip. So it's important to strike at the lip so that we get the fundamental pitch sounding. The second reason for that is that so that we hear the strong fundamental and the strong 12th in the overtone series, the center of the casting is very thin. So you don't want to strike the center of the casting with a mallet so that we don't want you to crack it. So keep the mallets very close to the lip of the casting. Another thing that we can do to add to hymn singing would be just a little ostinato pattern, and it could be something as simple as this. I would love to use that on Natalie Sleeth's Go Now in Peace. Another great idea would be a peel. So here we go. This would be something that would work very nicely on Joy to the World. My favorite is using these bells with chant and just using the simple open fifth and have a beautiful chant line go along with it. Or another great use for open fifths would be hymn tunes from Southern Harmony. So either one of those is beautiful. If we used Of the Father's Love Begotten, just an open E flat and B flat. Or if you were singing What Wondrous Love Is This in D minor, just the D and A. Or how about O Come Emmanuel? And just play the fifths over and over again at the end of a phrase, and it just creates just a stunning moment for the use of those fifths. Another idea would be to open those fifths up a little bit, and so I'm going to perhaps do this. And I could create the Zimbelstern effect on the final stanza of your favorite hymn. You may want to add some drama or excitement by using chord clusters with the cymbals as well. And we can use 2 mallets in each hand and just create an open effect. And they would be great during a dramatic reading. And finally, one of the most glorious ways to use this instrument would be to ring a descant on it during a hymn tune as well. Just any descant that you may have in a book of descants and add it to the hymn would be a wonderful use of these instruments. Another way that these instruments are used is through the use of a solo instrument. But before we switch to that, I would just like to recommend a resource that we have here at Malmark. It's a book written by Hal Hobson called Handbells in Worship. And in this book, he uses wonderful examples of adding bells to hymn tunes, and the cymbals work very nicely. Some of the examples that I gave you earlier in the session today are in this book, as well as some others, and the beautiful thing about it is he arranged them by tune names, so it's very easy to find references and examples to be used, as well as he teaches you how to create your own resources. So this is a wonderful book available here at Malmark, Handbells in Worship by Hal Hobson. Before we continue, I would like to introduce Hyosung Park, who is a wonderful solo ringer on handbells and chimes, as well as cymbals, and she'll explain a little bit more about her art.
Hello everybody, so I'll be showing you what you can do with the cymbals as a solo instrument. So if you have a piano accompaniment at a church or a school, you can simply play a tune with the piano accompaniment and the melody done on the cymbal. So I'll be playing Schubert Ave Maria. So if you do not have a piano accompaniment, fear not, there's another way to do it. So since there is no introduction done on the piano, as Kathy mentioned, you can start any melody with the ostinato pattern. another way to show the beauty of a melody, and the handbell, the cymbals, is using an open fifth. So I'll show you what you can do. As Kathy mentioned, the Southern melody and also Irish melody is perfect because it sits really well with open fifth. I really do hope that you'll find a way to use the cymbals in your services and where you work with children and adults. Thank you.
We're very proud of our quality instruments and craftsmanship here at Malmark. If you should have any questions about the cymbals or about Malmark handbells or choir chimes, please feel free to reach out to us. Our toll-free number is 1-800-HANDBELL, HANDBEL, and we can be found on the web at www.malmark.com. Thanks so much for joining us today.